Hi, this is Stefan Edwards with eManage1. In the following video, I'm going to go over AutoParts, what AutoParts means, what you can use them for, show you some examples, and then go through how to set up your own AutoParts. So let me first kind of discuss what AutoParts are. AutoParts are used when you're doing estimating, and it's a way to create a standardization within your company. It's a way to maximize the efficiency of your people doing the estimating. It's a way to set some things up so you don't forget to add to your quotes. But basically, it's you can use them for all your service items or design parts, labor, freight, and so on. So let me show you a couple examples. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new quote, and I'm not going to import anything. So I'm going to go down here to this choose AutoPart Templates, and these are templates that I have. And so what I'm going to do, I have a whole bunch of different AutoPart templates, but I'm going to select this first one. And it's this is just the name of the template. And actually, if I click on this plus sign, I'm going to expand. I'm going to show all the different auto parts that I have inside of here. So you'll see that when I add it to my quote. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm selecting to use this auto part, and I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to create a new option. Now, what it's going to do when it creates a new option is I'll show you a couple things here, is I have a new option, and I'm just going to name this sample. And then I have a default phase, and I'm just going to call this seating. And then I have this next phase that's called contract services. Now this is my AutoPart template that added in there. And basically what I did is when I create my AutoPart template, I tell it to create its own phase name, its own tag group, and I give it a name. I also give it a sort order, and I also give it a description. So it has a much longer description here. But if I click on this, you notice these are all the items, my auto parts, and everything is 0 as far as quantity except 1, which is my minimum chair delivery. And then I do have list prices in here. So these are formulas that I've gone through and created as samples to show what you can do with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some items to this. So I'm going to do a quote just for some seating. So if I click on my BOM here, I'm just going to go into Project Matrix, and I'm going to grab some seating. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to grab some KI seating. And let's grab something here pretty quickly. We'll grab this Grazie chair, and let's go ahead and turn that around. And let's select that and select some options and accept that. Okay, so I'm adding the parts, and you'll see those add here in a second. And what I'm going to do is you'll notice that this contract services is $65. And I'm going to go in here and kind of open this up and show you what I've done. So I have my chair here, which is quantity of 1. I have my minimum chair, which is a minimum charge of 1. And there's a chair delivery, which is 1. Now that was set to 0, but because I have a quantity, it changed. So I'm going to change this to 25. And when I do this, it automatically updates my chair delivery. Okay? So that's one example. Now, if I'm going to change this to seating and tables. And now let's go in here and let's add a table. And so I'm going to go right back, and I'll just go into KI because it's right here. And grab some tables. select those and edge, and we'll skip that, skip that, skip that, and skip and accept. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm adding tables. And my contract services, I only had seating so far is my labor. Now for my tables, let's go back here and kind of click on everything so you can see everything. Now I have not only a table, so I also have here, which is my desking and table labor. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm pricing this based off of either the list price, the cost, or the sell price to the customer, and it's basically 10%. So that's my calculation for my AutoPart on this. Now, if I change this to 12, then what happens is this is going to change. Now, my desking labor went up, and so it's automatically calculating on that. Now, another part that I have down here is I have a project management fee, which is taking either list, cost, or sell, and it's times it by percentage, and here's my project management fee. So basically what I did, and the example that I'm showing you, is that I select this AutoPart template, and it's a series of parts that I use for estimating. Now, it's kind of a two-part thing. Is the first part is I'm telling it every time I do a quote, add these parts. And then I can manually go in here and I can change these. But what I did is I took it one step further, and rather than manually going in here and changing these, I've come up with formulas. And my formulas now, I set eManage up so that it's calculating off of these formulas. Now, if I want to, I could go in here and say this chair delivery. Now, this is based on the quantity of chairs. So if I change this to 30, it's just going to go back to 25 because it's set based on the quantity here. But if I need to increase this price, as an example, maybe this is going to be a more difficult. Maybe it's stair carry. I can actually change this, or it's a heavier chair. But I could change this to rather than 12, maybe I'm going to change it to 16. So I could change the price right here. And I could do that on any one of these. So I still have the flexibility of adjusting this. So, maybe I want to go down to 10. So I can still go through here and make the adjustments necessary. But the idea is that I'm not forgetting to price this stuff. And also that I'm setting a standard and kind of a baseline. Like maybe you have an overhead charge, other than I have a project management charge. Maybe you have an overhead that you want to apply to every single quote. Or maybe you have a design fee that you want to apply to every single quote. Then you could do that. Now, you can also, with these AutoPart templates, you can check off multiple templates. So if you notice here, I have furniture line item quote, and that's what I just did. Now, if this was, say it was an out-of-town installation, I can select travel as well. And then there's all these other ones, like this is Sycon Bid or Commerce Point. These are fees that were charged when you do these bids, so you can select those as well. So you can create as many AutoPart templates as you want and use them in combination with each other. So if I was, I just selected that one for travel. If I was going to do a new quote here and it included travel, then when this creates, it has my contract services. But if I click on this and show all my auto parts, there's going to be airfare, there's auto, which is for car rental, and there's lodging. So all the other auto parts per diem, the auto parts that were for the travel, all added here. And so you can see them. Now they're all in there so you don't forget to add them. And what you can do is if you need, when you're done with this and you go to create your quote, any items that have zero quantity, it's going to ask you if you want to delete it, and then you just say yes, and it removes all those items. Now, one thing to keep in mind as well, before I show you how to create AutoParts, is not only did I create this AutoPart template with the sort order, the phase name, and a phase description, but I also told this, if you scroll down to the end here, we have our phase quantity and a phase unit of measure. Now, what this does is a phase quantity will then summarize all these parts into one line item, this one line item. That's why I gave it a phase name and a phase description. I don't want my customer to see all these line items. And so I defaulted it when I created my phase description or my AutoPart template. I also told it to do a phase quantity of 1 and each. So this is the only line item the customer is going to see, just this. They're not going to see all these line items. But for internal use, I can see all these line items. Okay? Now, these the AutoParts also work for when you're importing. So if you're importing from an XML from CET, or you're importing from Project Matrix, or you're importing from 2020 CAP or Worksheet, whatever, on the import, and I'll show you how you set the AutoPart as well, is when you click on import, it's going to open up the import window. I will then select the import that I'm doing, and I would browse for a file, and this drop down right here, this is where you can select which AutoPart template you're using. Now, once you make that selection, it will stay selected until you change it again. So every time you log into eManage, it's always going to default to the one that you selected. And before I get into showing you how I created these, let me delete this. I want to show you another AutoPart because there's so many different ways, things you could do, and it's really up to your creativity when you do this. But I'm going to go down here and change my AutoPart, and I'm going to check my furniture, and I'm going to check travel, and I'm going to go to kiwalls. Okay. Now, what happens with this, and let's do a new option. What the difference between this, if you notice, I have my main option here. I'm just going to call this kiwalls. And then I have my phase here. And I'm just going to call it kiwalls quote. And if you notice, I only have one phase. So this one, I broke it out. So I wanted all my material, all my product in one phase, one grouping, and then I wanted all my contract services, which is my freight and labor, in a different grouping. And this is all done in that setup. So I have freight and labor combined into one, but if you want to, you can set it up so one phase will be all labor and another phase will be all freight. Now, what I did on this walls is I'm just doing a lump sum quote. So I'm not giving a breakdown of anything. I'm just going to say kiwalls quote, and in fact, if I was even smarter about this, I would have given it a phase name of kiwalls quote, and I could have defaulted the description, which could be edited at any time by double clicking, and I could just say kiwalls to so I can start to put a description in here of what I want to say to the customer, and get this all taken care of and make this nice quote, and I can even put a picture here. So So the difference is I'm having my auto parts all show up in one phase. I'm not going to break it out. And also, let me see here, I don't have my phase quantity, but I should have a phase quantity. And we'll go in, and when I show you how to do an AutoPart template, we'll go in and correct this. But in the meantime, I will just update it. So you can change this at any time. Now, the cool thing about this is when I get a quote from them, they're actually going to give me a price. And so I could put a quantity of 1, and then I could go into my list, and maybe they give me a price, and it's $3,500 for freight. Okay? So I could just put $3,500. Now, that's a cost, and that's a list. So I don't have any margin on this. So if I want to put a margin, I'm going to have to increase this list price and have a discount from list. Now, my kiwalls quote, I have it defaulting to 1. And so I have a quantity of 1, and maybe my quote is for $25,000. Okay? So now there's my price, and then there's my discount that I get is a 55, and there's my cost. Now, one of the things that I would like to do is, and in fact, let me check. I'm just going to refresh this because I thought I had this template set up for the labor to automatically calculate, and it's not. So I need to do a little bit of work on this. What I would like to do is, rather than having to type in the quantity and then type in a list price and then a manufacturer's discount and so on, is I can make this so it will figure out the margin for me. So I'm going to go in and correct this, but let's go in and show you how to create these auto parts. But again, the example that I showed you with this kiwalls is I didn't have to type any of this stuff in. I just went to my auto parts and did a new quote, and it just all showed up. Okay, so I'm not going to forget to add project management. I'm not going to have to go and manually add all these parts. It's just there, and then I can go through there and manually change these. But trying to make it as automated as possible, the better off you are. So let's go in and let's show you how to create these AutoPart templates. You go to Tools, and under Tools is Configure, and under Configure is Configure BOM Quick Quote Auto Parts. Okay. Now it says BOM/Quick Quote because these auto parts also work on a Quick Quote. And if you're not familiar with the Quick Quote, we have a video on the new Quick Quote, and it's a way to for people that are reordering stuff or processing your quotes really fast, and or you need to just process a quote really fast for somebody, you can just do it on a Quick Quote. So, okay, so let's configure. Let's click on that, and a window's going to open that's going to list all my AutoPart templates. Now, an AutoPart template, what's an AutoPart template? A template is just basically a container, okay? So this furniture line item quote, if I click on this, it's going to list all the parts that I have attached to that. And then I have a phase quote, then I have HPH quotes, so I have nothing in there. Bid parts, so when I do bids, we add bonding, space saver. So I have different AutoPart templates throughout here. So let's go ahead and create a new AutoPart template and add some AutoParts, and I'll show you how that works. So first, let's just create one for labor. We'll just call this labor quote. And description, I'm just going to call it labor quote again. This category is if you want to set the category down here so you can group them. You can group these if you want to. If you just right click and turn your grouping on, you can go like that. Might make it easier to find things. Depends how you want to view your grids. And And then divisions, if you have multiple company divisions, AutoParts can be set to one division or another division or all available divisions. And then there's filters that you can also apply to this. So I'm going to go ahead and just make it available, and I'm going to save that. Now what happens is when we save this, it adds it down here to my labor quote. Okay, and so if I wanted to reassign this, I definitely could reassign this that category down there after. Now the next part of this is adding parts to your AutoPart template. Now, and this gets to the first part of what you can use these AutoParts for, is you can say every time I do a quote, I want these parts to be there, so my people don't ever forget to add things, or I don't forget to add things. So it's just a way to, as a reminder. So what you do is you select the AutoPart template that you created, and then you go down here to search parts, and you can search parts. If you're not familiar, you can do it on a variety of ways. You can type it in any keyword or whatever, and it will find it. I'm just going to type in, let's see, labor. Let's see if I can pull something up there, and hit search, and I have labor. So I have labor auditorium, I have all kinds of labor. So why don't we just take, I'm just going to take a general labor here, and I'm going to double click on it. Now what this is doing is when I double click on it, is it's adding it to this template, but it opens up this window. And there's a few different parts to this window, and this is where you set up what the AutoPart's going to do. Is the AutoPart just going to add, or do you want the AutoPart to add and calculate? So this side is just the auto add options, and then this right side is the auto calculation options. And then down here is how you set how you want it to calculate. And I'll talk about that in just a second. So the first thing that we want to do is the part that we added is this labor system center and system center labor charge. And so this is the part. Now, the first thing that I need to do is, do I want it to automatically create a new phase, which is what it did. Let me move these out of the way. So if we remember, if we look back on this one, when I created this new quote, it added this separate phase. So if I wanted to create a new phase, then I'm going to check this box, and it's going to automatically create a new phase. Now, if I don't want it to create a new phase, and I want it to just show up in the existing phase, then I'm just going to check this box where it says automatically create a new BOM for every phase. Okay, so not only will it create it for this phase, but if I had 10 phases in here, it's going to put AutoParts on all 10 phases. Okay, and those are basically for quotes when you're doing lump sum quotes and you don't want to break things out, then that's how you'll want to do it. So if I click on this phase, you can see here's all the items, the furniture items, and then these are all the AutoPart items. So it put it all under one phase, created a new BOM for every phase. Where this way at the top, it created a new phase and a new BOM within that phase. Okay, so that's the first thing that you have to determine. And I would go ahead and start playing around with this. You know, you can't break anything, and just start testing it and seeing what it does. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this automatically create a new phase and BOM every time I create a new option. And then the second part of this is, what do you want that phase name to, or the phase name and description to be? So if you notice here, I have that contract services is my phase name, and then I have this phase description. So you can create a new one, or you can select one of the existing ones. So if I just select one of these, then it's going to put all of my information in here. So if I want to create a new one, then I'm just going to create this new button. Click on this button, and you give it a name, you give it a description, and then this is where you set that phase quantity and that phase unit of measure. So that phase unit of measure and phase quantity, that's important if you want this line to be a summary of all the individual parts below. That's where you set this. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just going to use this existing one, which has the existing quantity of 1 and each, and then I save. Okay, so now what it's going to do is every single time I select this AutoPart template, it's going to automatically add this part. So let's just go, let's close this for now. And let's go back. So if I click back on assigned parts, let's see, I should have my part there. There's my labor part, okay? And so if I go back to my quote over here, and I go to my AutoPart Templates, let's uncheck that, and I think I'm going to need to do, I might need to close this because I just added that. So yeah, let me close this window and reopen it. And so it reloads my drop down there. Now, once this opens up, I'll go ahead and select that new AutoPart template that we created. And let's see where it is. Okay, labor quote. I'll select that. And then I go and I'll create a new option. And it will add this option here. And you'll see, here's the contract services. Now if I click on it, there's my labor charge. Okay, that part that I added. Now, it's not doing anything but adding. So if I wanted to put labor in there, then I could put a quantity. And then if this is an hourly, and I put 20 hours, and then it's figuring out based off of $70 an hour. Okay. So the next part of this is if you want to make that AutoPart calculate on other items. So let's go back to configure and configure BOM quickquote AutoParts. And I'll show you a few ways to do this. And one of the things that I always suggest people do is there's some formula that you have when you're doing estimating. Even if somebody's sitting there and they're looking at it in their head, they're either putting together hours, or they might be looking at each workstation and saying, each workstation is going to be like 3 hours, or it's this percentage of cost, or whatever it is. There is a way that you should be able to come up with a formula that's pretty accurate. Because at the end of the day, the easier you make it, the faster you guys can get quotes turned out the door, and also, you'll increase your accuracy, because every time you manually do something, you're opening a door for error. Okay, so I'm clicking on labor quote. Now I want to edit this part. So if I just double click on this, and now I want to set options to auto calculate. So as this window opens, okay, I have all my settings that I set previously. Now what happened is once I save this, all of this is enabled. So the first thing you can see here is calculate quantity by the sum of cost, or calculate by list, or by weight, or by man hours. Now some manufacturers include weight on their items, and some include man hours on their items. That's why we have these two. You can also calculate the quantity based on the quantity. So if you remember on the other quote, that other one I did here, I had seating, and I had 25 chairs, and so it's $12 per chair, so it calculated, you know, 25 for that item. I can also calculate by the customer price. This is the sell price, or the cubes. Some manufacturers include cubes in there, and this is mainly for freight. I can also calculate this part on the sum of the base quantity of a specific product type. So, and the product types are listed down here. So then you can also do that as well. Now I can also, on my minimum chair delivery that I put in here, I have a minimum chair delivery of 1 at $65. This is where I can put in, use this quantity. So you can say always have a quantity of 1 on this part, or there's always a quantity of 2 or whatever. And then this other one here is factor. This is actually a really cool tool. There was an example is we had a customer that labor was based off of, it was based off of the, I don't know if it was the cost, or I think it was the sell price to the customer, but they also had to include tax only on the labor. There was like they had to include that in the price. So all we did is the factor 1 of 1 is just going to be whatever that 1 is of the sell price to the customer, but it was like a 0.04 is was the tax rate on top of that. So we changed this factor to 1.04, and then that price included the tax. So this factor can be really cool. I've also used this factor actually on floor tile. We have an auto part here for tile, and let me uncheck this, and I think it is this tough seal tile. And this, if I recall, this uses a factor. Let me just double check here. But each tile is something like 2.25 square feet, and the installation is based off of a square foot, and so we use the factor on that. So let's see what this, so the tough seal flooring here, and the overland freight, the edge reducer, installation. Yeah, so installation, let's see if it does it. So if I have, this is tiles, and these tiles are 2.17. So if I have 20 tiles, maybe I don't have this set up. Yeah, I must not have this set up. So basically what this did, and I'll have to look at this, but this is per tile, and then this is per square foot. So the factor was based off this 2.17 on this, and then it will calculate. So I can kind of come back and show you that. But anyways, you can kind of play around with it. I think you get the idea. So basically what we're going to do is we have this labor charge, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this labor charge and calculate it based off of the customer price. So all I'm going to do is check that box. Now down here is you have two options. You have an option to do it by product type, which is right here, or you have an option to do it by manufacturer's code. So it's one or the other. You can't do both. So if you want to, you can, I'm just going to take calculates based off manufacturer's code, and being that I'm charging labor based off of the customer price, sell price, I'm just going to select all these parts. So I'm going to toggle all. Okay, and now these are all selected. Okay, so what I do now is I save that, and I can close this. And let's go back here and close this. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this and get it out of the way. If I go back to this, I don't think I have to create a new one. I can probably just add, I have my labor here. I should be able to go in here and just add a part. So let's just go into my project spec. And let's just grab anything here, pedestals, boxbox file. And let's just grab this guy and accept. Now, what should happen, and I don't know if I have to refresh this, but this should add automatically update that labor. Okay, so let's change the quantity of this to 10. And if we go into our labor here, and yeah, it looks like it's not going to do it because I already had it set. Let's see if I just hit 0 or 1. Yeah. Okay, so it's not going to do it. What I need to do is let's go ahead and just get rid of this and add that back in. So I'll go to my AutoPart Templates and let's go to my labor quote and let's do a new quote here. And right when it opens, it goes directly to the bill of materials for me to add an item here. So let's go grab some seating. And add that guy. And I'll change the quantity here so we can kind of bump that up. And we will change this to 20. Okay, so if you can see what happened here is we have, oops, it did not update my labor quote there. So you know what, let's go back and see what happened here, because I thought we set that. I might have missed something, so let's go back and check that right now. So there's a couple of settings. If you don't get right, then it's not going to work. But the good thing is you just got to go back and figure out what you did. Okay, so that opened up. I have it set to calculate based off of the customer price of the specific product types. Maybe that's why. Let me toggle all here and let me do product types. I didn't think that mattered, but let me just double check this. And let's get these all selected. Okay, so let's try that again. And I have this, allow sale price, be adjusted. I think we're all good here. And let's close that. Let's close this. And thought I should be able to just update that, but let me go back in here and do that over again. Okay, so new option. And add this part again. Let's go down to some seating over here. Okay. Accept. And let's make sure this works. Okay, looks like it's not working here. And I'm not sure what I did on this one part. So I guess we go back and check it again. And this is how we learn how to do it, by doing it over and over and over again. We know it works because it's working on all the other ones. It's just this new one I created. I'm not too sure what's up with the new auto part I created here. I am noticing that my grid, that these are not check boxes down here, but I don't think that should do anything because it has them selected. And let me go ahead. I'm going to change this from customer price, and let's change it to list price. And just double check to see if that is doing anything. I don't think there's anything else on this. Yep, it's adjustable. Okay, we're all good here. Let's see if this will change. Oops, I don't want to do that. Nope, that's still not changing. And I am going to copy that part. And then let's just go ahead and add a new option here. And I'm just going to paste that part in rather than going through Project Matrix and adding it. So let's just paste it in there. It's a lot faster. And we've got 12. And there we go. Okay. So it looks like something's not working on the customer price, which I will double check. But there you go. I changed that to pricing based off of list, and it works fine. So I can now add more and more of these labor parts or project management or freight. Actually, freight, we have an automated way of doing that, so you don't necessarily need to add freight anymore. But you can start to add whatever items that you want. So anyways, this is it's a great tool. We have a bunch of customers that use this as an, just showing you how we did it here, adding our scene, and we have our contract services. And like I said, if you want to break this out, it could be contract services labor, contract labor services freight, or whatever you want to name these. You can do that in this configure AutoPart templates. And I'm just trying to think if there was anything else that you'll want to do. Oh, I do want to point out that adjustable. One of the things that I recommend is that you make it so the auto parts are not adjustable. So every time you add a part, you're going to have to do the settings for it. So, and you'll have to go through all these settings. But down at the bottom here, that checkbox that says allow sale price to be adjusted, when you adjust, if you're putting in a discount or margin up on top here, you don't want it to necessarily adjust the auto parts, then make sure you uncheck that. So generally, we're not, some of the customers that I'm working with are not they don't want their labor and things to be where you can put a discount on it. So they'll uncheck that so they don't make it adjustable. Okay. So anyways, don't be afraid of auto parts, and think about it. create some, just create some and let them add, create multiple templates, but then really start to think it through to see how you can leverage it. As you can see here, just kind of an example of some of these that we have is this is a furniture line item quote, and the line item quote is where it breaks out the contract services as a separate phase. A phase quote is where it combines the auto parts into the phase. So this is a summary quote, a lump sum quote. So that's why we have two different AutoPart templates here. This is for a special customer. These are for bids. These are for different types of equipment, flooring, GSA. Actually, this is a great example. So KI, GSA, they give you a list, and your cost it's just the net price to the customer, and you get a margin on that. So if we had a customer that's pricing labor based off of list price, but when they do GSA, then the GSA is based off of cost. It isn't list. So actually what they did is they used the factor. And if you notice here, use for KI, oops, let me go back here and you'll see it. So they created a note here. Net price products, contract services calculated by a factor of 2.79 of the list price, which is the cost. So it brings it back up. It's roughly 2.79. That's the factor used to get that installation back up to where they would price it if it was a normal commercial project. Okay, so a great use of this factor. There's also, this is one because there's freight. They have an overland freight program, and there's a fuel surcharge, which was 1%. These are those walls. This is travel, different things. So you can create as many templates as you want, and you can put as many parts as you want in there, and then you can use a combination of these AutoPart templates to do your quote. Okay, so anyways, I hope you got a lot out of this video. If you need any help or have any other questions, please call into support and ask us. We also have a lot of other videos posted on the website. But anyways, it's just a really, really great way of helping to make your estimating more accurate, more efficient, and also helping to eliminate margin erosion. So anyways, hope you enjoyed the video, and go make some auto parts.